Blended Podcasts. Brought to you by Blended Audio.
ArtPod is a South African-focused visual arts podcast hosted by Claude Chandler. Join me weekly every Saturday as I'm joined by a new guest who occupies a position within the visual arts community, ranging from fine arts, tattooing, framing, and logistics. Cool. Welcome to another episode of Pod Art. I'm joined today with Warren Rysdorf, a fellow Durbanite. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. We've gone through this before, so we sound a bit stiff. It was interesting when I put the invite out to you and just spoke about what Pod Art is and interviewing local creatives. And your response was quite interesting. You said, I no longer see myself as a creative. You can answer that, but just a bit of context. Warren Rysdorf is, I guess you could say he's an illustrator, cartoonist, storyteller, and now game designer.
Yep, that's correct.
He moved to Cape Town around the same time I did in 2013, 2014, 2012?
2012.
Sure, it's been a while. And I mean, I was a bit just not disheartened with your response, because for me, I was very, very envious of you and almost jealous in many ways. And I think it was just your kind of your ambition and your commitment to what you do in your craft, especially in Durban. I just felt you were this kind of juggernaut. You had Free Beer, a kind of independent indie comic you launched and produced. And I mean, if there was any event or, say at the Winston, you had Sketch Wars, it just feels like you kind of became part of the furniture of the Durban creative scene. Again, your response saying, I don't see myself too much as a creative anymore, was quite an interesting response. Do you want to slightly elaborate on that? I don't know how deep you want to jump into that.
Okay. Well, yes, I was very active in the art scene in Durban, and did a lot of cool indie things. Sketch Wars, we did a lot of live art with other illustrators, yourself, Billy Pineapples, Alistair Laird, Nivesh Rawatwal, and it was really fun to do. We there was a lot of energy in Durban, and so when we moved to Cape Town, I guess you and other people probably had the same expectation of me, but you would know, coming to Cape Town, being relatively unknown, you have to slot in somewhere and start making money. And I guess I was caught up in that and had to quickly forge a career for myself. And
I mean, coming to Cape Town, there was an opportunity for reinvention. I think in Durban, there's you build up an identity. People have these certain expectations of you. You kind of, build yourself up, and it's a long way down.
I would say people had no expectations of me in Durban.
Oh, really? Okay. But I think that's Durban for you, right?
Yep.
Because, when we came to Cape Town, I know, as you said, you kind of started pursuing your career path. I guess I was doing the same. I don't know what the hell I was doing. And there was a sense you kind of hit the floor running. We together put an exhibition proposal together. And I think within the first year we had a group show, and I think you kind of were a big push for that with the mashup show at the Alex Jones studio/gallery.
Yep.
Do you feel you kept that momentum up thereafter, or did you eventually find Striker, which we'll definitely get into, did you feel that was, you just wanted to kind of put all your energy into that, and then
I guess the first job I got was working for Gavin Rain. I don't know if I can speak about this, but
sure.
You can cut it out.
We can edit it out. You can have a think about it afterwards.
But do you know how he runs a studio?
I do, yeah. I know. I think it's kind of general knowledge that he basically has like an art factory, and he employs people to do the labor orientated aspects where he designs and visualizes the final image.
Okay, well, I knew the studio manager, and she said, if you ever need a job when you come to Cape Town, you can work for Gavin Rain. Basically, I worked for him for I think about 4 weeks, painting his paintings, assisting him. But 4 weeks in, I realized that I don't want to work for other people. I don't really want to be taking direction from somebody, painting their paintings for them receiving all of the recognition. So I quit. I became unemployed, and that's probably when we started speaking about doing something together. Maybe that's when the mashup idea started. Yes. I don't know. I was doing a lot of different things at the time, as you have to when you're a creative. I was doing a workshop at Great Moor Studios, a cartooning workshop. I was working at what's this place in a garden center? Wordsworth Books.
Oh, cool.
I worked in the bookshop, and that was great. I also worked for another studio doing textile t-shirt prints and graphics for them. I was spreading myself way too thin at this time, doing too many things. At one stage, I think I had 4 jobs, trying to survive, paying Tambuskuf rent.
Yes.
Yeah, you know.
I remember that
you
flat.
know about this.
Yeah. Well, then, what I wanted to ask, just going back to, say, the jump from Durban to Cape Town and the Gavin Rain job, was that a thing where you're like, I really want to shift or change or leave the nest, or I want to find more career opportunities? And because there's the Gavin Rain opportunity, I can kind of, it gives me the window or the opening to move to Cape Town. Was that?
It was always meant to be a starting point.
Okay.
For me, it was a starting point.
So what was the main decision to leave Durban?
Just I don't know what your personal experience with your hometown Durban is, but for me there was never that much happening.
Yeah.
There was never that much for me to grow into. There was nothing to aspire to in terms of established studios. I needed to grow. I needed to expose myself to new things.
For sure. There was some push. Well, that was also my decision making. Leaving the nest, Durban not really being too inspiring and not a place to grow one's career.
It is inspiring, but you can get very comfortable.
Sure. Well, I mean, especially, say, in the situation you were, where you became a figurehead in the creative field, and maybe some people would argue that you should have been the ambassador and laid proper infrastructure for future creatives. Did you feel a certain responsibility like that, or?
No. I don't know anybody anything.
No, I was tasked with that question as well, and I pretty much felt the same way. I do, give it up to the guys who do stay and want to kind of forge something in Durban. I mean, it is a blank page for that, but I think it's just, enthusiasm and just like the culture of it's just not there. And I don't know if it's because of a financial thing.
Well, for me, I was super motivated to do stuff in Durban. And I was hoping to be able to carry that over into my stay here in Cape Town. And for the project Sketch Wars, I always had the idea of bringing it to Cape Town. And like there were certain things that, because of the enthusiasm, running it in Durban, there was no sense of financial investment behind it. I could never fully do what I wanted to do with that project. I wanted it to be a lot bigger, a lot better, and I was never happy with what we did in Durban, even though it was perceived to be a good initiative for KZN, for creatives, for just the city as a whole. But I always intended bringing it to Cape Town and starting it from the point that I was happy with. And maybe when it was at that level, I could bring it back to Durban, take it to other cities, do festivals. But yeah, that was, I guess maybe it was always my intention to go back to Durban, but I don't see myself ever moving back and being a creative pillar.
For sure. I mean, I have my mother in Durban, and when I go there, I just feel like a guest now. It doesn't feel too much like home. With Sketch Wars, the enthusiasm, and I guess there is a bit more platform for such events. Did you try, what was your, let me just try and reframe this. Did you try and introduce it into Cape Town initially?
No. Not at all.
Did it just, you kind of moved and then you're just like, no, it's not going to...
No, when I do it, I'm going to do it properly.
Okay.
And I'm not ready for it yet.
For sure.
Need the right kind of infrastructure.
And yeah, all right. No, interesting. But I mean, it's been quite a while. I'm hoping it's going to be this bloody planet realigning event.
No. It will still be indie.
Yes.
But it'll be properly organized when I do it.
For sure. And then another big element I associate you with is Free Beer, an indie comic you produced. Do you want to talk about that a bit more?
So, Free Beer is I guess the idea came from, I think there was a punk band called Free Beer. I don't know when they were in existence, but Free Beer, I don't think I started it per se.
Okay.
I think it was a collective effort. It was, do you know, I don't know how to refer to this person, but he's known as Creepy Steve, DJ Creepy Steve.
Okay.
He's a household name in Durban, especially around the Winston pub community, alternative music community. He used to make these little zines, and they're often very rude, crudely drawn, and he used to distribute them, and nobody really got it. I think it's fair to say. So he used to do these shows at the Winston pub. He was a vinyl DJ, and we were all sitting around one day thinking, like, how can we get people through the door? And so we said, yeah, let's promise people free beer at the door. And I don't know how it came about, but I think somebody must have suggested. It was either myself, it was Creepy Steve, or it was Alistair Laird, my buddy, cartoonist buddy. And so we came to the conclusion that we were going to do a little pamphlet zine called Free Beer, and we were going to hand it out at the Winston pub door for free, to trick people into thinking they were getting an actual free beer, which obviously never happened. And the whole idea was to see the looks on people's faces when they received this crappy comic called Free Beer.
Yeah, just to give a bit of context, the Winston Bar in Durban is, well, what do you call it? Very grungy.
Well, I think right now it's quite a trendy place, but
Yes.
When we were talking about it in 2009, 2010, I think it was known as quite a shithole.
Yes. I don't want to put it as lightly.
Or maybe I can't say that. Maybe it
No.
was, yeah.
Well, just a place to get a nice black label coat, I guess. And
Yeah.
yeah, for me,
Lots of cockroaches.
you guys are very, very brave to offer free beer and dupe them in such a way. I'd be terrified. But I love, as an origin story, that's bloody amazing.
So, to give more context about the free beer thing, I think Creepy Steve is the one who actually put the first edition together. And if you have one of those, we only printed about 150. Although it may not look like it, I think it's worth something. Hold on to it, don't throw it in the gutter. I only have one copy myself. But we've since done 13 other issues, and I guess at some point, Creepy Steve, stopped doing it. And both myself and Alistair. So it's basically Alistair led, Creepy Steve, and myself, Warren Rysdorf, who were the main creators of Free Beer. I think it's fair to say that it's a trio. But I'm the one who continued putting the magazine together and actually helped grow it and make it more of a comic. And so toward the end, issue 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, it looks more of a comic, and it's quite not professional because it's...
You can say professional.
Okay, let's call it professional. But yeah,
Is there a resistance for it being professional? I know before recording this, we were chatting and you said, free beer was just for us. Like, we didn't care what anyone thought. But I think there was a certain amount of either commitment or enthusiasm for you to develop and grow it. Was there maybe this fantasy or idea that something or someone would pick it up and it would explode into this much bigger thing, this cultural phenomenon?
Well, Free Beer as a comic is an anthology, meaning other people contribute little stories to it. So it was full of little stories, full of little articles, illustrations, puzzles even. But it was always meant to entertain as opposed to impress. I think that it was supposed to be like a toilet read, something that you could pick up at any point and just like hopefully laugh at what you're seeing. But for myself, the things that I put in the magazine or the comic was purely to entertain myself, and it was never to really impress other people. And we offended some people. I had a story called Patience and Grace in there. And a lot of people said it was maybe a little bit racist, maybe a little bit sexist, because of the way we depicted these black women who lived in an apartheid South Africa that, I guess they look kind of offensive.
Sure.
But we also wanted to push some buttons.
Yeah, but I think also the purpose wasn't just to be purely offensive. I think there must, there's a certain creativity, or I don't know. I'm speaking on behalf of you here. But on those characters, I used to love seeing on your Facebook your sketches in the train. You would always kind of sketch those characters.
Well, that story was I drew hanging out at Steve's place the one day. I would sit and draw these characters, and I'd show him, and we would talk about them. And he actually wrote the first the first story for Patience and Grace, and so I just showed him the characters, and he would like write this whole story for them, and so he's also to blame. It's not only me, but yeah, I'm in love with the characters. I think they're fantastic. I'm not sure people will completely get it.
Sure.
So which is probably the reason why we've stopped making free beer. I think we've also outgrown it.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, very unfortunate. I mean, you also feel the political climate. I think, people are quite tense about certain social issues. Do you think free beer has actually more of a place in a certain kind of zeitgeist, or do you think it might need to reconsider how it navigates that territory?
I think free beer, something like free beer, has a place. I don't know if I'm prepared to put my energy into something that is called free beer, because at this stage in my life I need to look after myself.
Sure, you gotta start charging for that beer.
Yeah, free beer is the name itself is a fantastic name, and like for what it did, it tricked people. People liked it. I don't know if they really liked it. They liked the idea of it, but there's no real value in it unless it reaches an audience that likes that kind of thing. But politically speaking, if we called it something else and we had similar content, I think it has a place.
Sure. And I mean, talking about, well, not really a pivot, but you had a certain trajectory because you ended up working for Stryker.
Yes.
And I associate Stryker with quite prestige in terms of the comic scene in South Africa, just in terms of a commercial sense and being recognizable. I remember I was visiting my family in Limpopo, and one of my little cousins was very familiar with Strike, and I said, "Oh, I know one of the artists," and it was just like these stars and sparkle shot out of his eyes, and everyone thought I was like such a hotshot artist, knowing these fellow artists. Was there a sense of I've kind of met a pinnacle in this field of work, and I'm very happy to be in this place initially? Or
yes, I actually applied for a job for Stryker Entertainment is what the company's name is called. I applied for a job from Durban. I didn't get a response, but then when I moved to Cape Town, I saw them advertising for a designer. I've got a graphic design background. I studied at CFAD, the Center for Fine Art, Animation and Design, with Nanda Subin, who owns the college. And so I applied for a job. I came in for an interview, and I did a test. In this kind of field, illustration, animation, graphic design, they often ask you to come in and do a test, which is crap, but it's something that they ask you to do. So I came in and did a test. I don't think I did very well, but one part of the test was that I had to draw something, and I think that got their attention, and I think they offered me a job as an inker, which was exactly what I wanted. I didn't want to be a graphic designer. So then, I mean, for me, it was a great opportunity to be in that sort of environment surrounded by very creative people. It was a fantastic opportunity. So yeah, I think on some level I would have found the perfect environment for me to be in.
Sure,
and develop.
And I mean, working at Stryker, coming from doing a lot of these indie projects and a lot of freelance stuff, how did the corporate setup or system, how did you gel with that?
I think initially I did quite well. I mean, I was very comfortable doing doing the comic book inking thing. Obviously, I was still learning, surrounded by very talented people. On some level, it was quite intimidating.
Sure.
Being around these people that I look up to. But before I knew it, people started dropping off, taking other jobs, leaving to do their own thing. I soon became a senior, and I guess when I found myself as more of a senior in the company, I'd been there for about 6 years. I didn't enjoy it so much. I didn't enjoy, telling other people what to do and how to do things, because I really enjoy other people's work, but in the context of something that's very specific, being Super Strikers, telling other people how to do things within that certain constraint of what things should look like. It was it's kind of soul destroying to like break other people's spirits, to tell them how basically how shit they are, or how, and I don't know what I'm saying, but
Warren, you seem like you'd be so good at it. No,
I'm brutally honest, but
sure.
At the same time, within like a working environment, everyone who worked there has so much value as a creative person, but within the Super Strikers thing, not many people can actually do the Super Strikers thing. And it's the reason it's actually important, and you said it, like you told your family friends or your family that you know somebody who works for Super Strikers. It's very important within the comics and animation industry in South Africa. It represents something that I can't think of any other products in South Africa that are made in South Africa. It's like the only thing I can think of in terms of comics that exists, that a person aspiring to get into the comics industry can go to.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of pop culture, yeah, I put it at the top. It's part of the pop culture South African zeitgeist, yeah.
So then you get somebody who's aspiring to be a comic creator, comes to Striker. Okay, not even talking about the people that don't even get through the door. I'm talking about the people who get hired, and then you have to work with them, and often they don't make it. They don't have the skill, but they want to have the skill to do the job. It's just within the constraints of that product they can't do it. But with their own personal work, they actually are fantastic artists and illustrators. And it sucks to see a person get so disheartened. And often they don't even return to comics because of that experience.
But don't you think that's kind of not a rite of passage, but I think as a creative, having those kind of stumblings and those roadblocks, and for someone, say, like you, who I feel committed completely to creative process, either storytelling, working with free beer and doing sketch walls, all that feeds into who you are as an artist, as a storyteller. And you might find someone fresh out of university who might have, some talent there and some skills, still needs to have a certain amount of molding or kind of failures for there to be more value. And the reason why Striker is what it is because of a certain standard and one. But I can understand it must be hard to be the Axeman.
Well, yeah, it's hard to be in that environment for 6 years straight. So I had to leave.
Yeah, 6 years is impressive. I know a lot of people in, say, similar fields or in graphic design jobs. 6 years is quite a stay. Normally you find 2-3 years and there's a shift. Did you feel you had a certain commitment to Striker, or there was a sense of comfort and security, or was it a thing of not celebrity, but wanting to be associated with the empire of Striker?
Not so much. I appreciate all the time that I had making comics, doing stuff with Striker. It was a fantastic learning opportunity. So I'm very grateful for that opportunity. But as an artist, as an illustrator, I needed to leave because I was totally influenced by the job that I was doing day in and day out. It completely influenced me, and I think although I learned a lot of very valuable skills, it influenced me too much. It influenced me too much. I had to leave,
Sure.
which is why I eventually got into gaming. I knew that I had to expand my mind to learn new things, and now I work for a company. We make online games, and I'm very happy for this new opportunity.
No, for sure. Just to kind of end off, you said you feel yourself more as a storyteller.
Yep.
And in many ways, I've perceived you as a traditionalist. I don't know, I always see things that you want to work with as almost hard copy.
Yeah.
And we were chatting before, just saying in terms of gaming, how that's become such a platform for storytelling. Do you think, kind of throwing yourself into this industry, that there is that opportunity for growth? Or do you think eventually, years down the line, you want to be sitting by the fireplace with your sketchbook?
I think I want to tell stories in whatever platform is most relevant, whether that be gaming, comics, film, short stories, little pamphlets, zines. Just want to tell stories, express ideas. I'm open to all formats.
For sure. And in terms of the comic book culture, are you a bit sad to see how it's shrinking and becoming more of this indie thing? Do you ever see yourself having a responsibility, in the near future or distant future, to try and revitalize it in the South Africa economy or the South Africa pop culture?
I think when you say the indie comic movement, I think more and more people are actually trying to be professional, and with people having access to all these different softwares, the work is looking more and more polished. And actually, where I see value is not in that commercial looking comic or zine or illustration or whatever. It's in the more raw, black and white, handmade comic books. I wish more and more people would make stuff like Free Beer.
Sure.
I think there's not enough people making bad comics, and I say that as a positive.
No, totally. I think learn to walk before you run, and
people need to make zines.
That you heard it here. I think the biggest takeaway from this podcast is make them zines. Thank you, Warren, for having this chat. I really wanted you on board, and I really love your creative journey and how you've progressed, and it's just nice to share a small snippet of that. And maybe when this podcast grows and we have longer format things, I don't know how it will transform. We might even have little, not even tutorials, but who knows. Anyways.
Well, it's been an interesting experience, my first interview. Thanks for having me.
No, it's a pleasure. And yes, thank you, Blended Audio, for making this happen, and all the best. Art Pod is a South African-focused visual arts podcast hosted by Claude Chandler. and produced by the generous assistance of Blended Podcasts, brought to you by Blended Audio.